together in hope and joy. Please be seated. I want to warn you about something that really shouldn't come as anything too unaccustomed with me, but we're going to get pretty nerdy. We're going to actually start out pretty nerdy, and then we're going to get nerdier, and then we're going to come back to something. Well, it's still going to be nerdy. That's all I can say. I can't help myself when you come to certain things. It's just the way it is. And so it should come as no shock to you, knowing me and the nerdiness caveat, that my favorite kind of movie to watch are documentaries. Any documentary fans? No? Are you anti-documentary?
I like fiction, man. Go ahead.
I'm not going to make jokes. It's a homily that would be inappropriate. It shocks me not that most of us are documentary fans. This is the Episcopal Church, after all, and we are Episcopalians through and through. Good documentary. I saw a lovely documentary on the St. Louis World Fair not too long ago. Very exciting. As well as a documentary, this one was really good, on a typewriter shop in Los Angeles. Tom Hanks was in it. It was moving. It was stirring. And Ken Burns baseball. Ken Burns baseball. Anybody Ken Burns baseball? All right. And so you know, you're familiar, you're fans of documentaries, that it's a common thing to have a story be told and then interject into that story reflections on that story, sometimes by participants in it, sometimes by commentators of some repute. And in the pages of the Scriptures, in the Hebrew Bible especially, we find that pattern. The two big stories of the Hebrew Bible are the story of creation and the story of the Exodus. The Exodus story is told, 6 or 8 times in the pages of the Hebrew Bible. The creation story told, depending on how you want to count it, lots of times. And then you have a lot of reflection on those stories. In fact, if you were listening carefully to our absolutely beautiful, thank you to our choir, psalm, it included reflection on stories in the Hebrew Bible. Now, when you have a book that was written over generations, you can do that. The Christian Testament, on the other hand, the New Testament, sorry, I'm in my professor phase, getting my lectures ready, the New Testament, now whatever you want to call it, the second part, compiled over a much briefer period of time, doesn't have that much, but it does have some. The prime example being what we heard in our readings today, in which we are told the story of the Transfiguration, and then we have a reflection by Peter or the Petrine community on that experience. And what I think is really interesting, and none of you will find this interesting, but I don't care because this is my bully pulpit, is that the story of the Transfiguration is a quintessentially Jewish story. Who shows up? Moses and Elijah. You want to talk Hebrew? You want to talk about the Jewish tradition and faith? These are the pillars of it. It is a Jewish story. It's going up on a mountain to hear from God in a cloud, right? Like, there's nothing more Jewish than that. But when Peter chooses to tell the story and reflect on it, he doesn't use Jewish categories. He uses Roman categories. He says that Jesus received from the Father honor and glory. I would say that to you in Latin, but it's honor and glory. That wouldn't sound impressive at all. These were the sorts of accolades that any Roman, civil servant, military, anyone would hope to receive in an imperial proclamation. Honor is a statement of virtue. You are doing the right things, and I want everybody to know that you're a stand-up, virtuous person. And glory is a statement about legacy. That this fame of yours is going to last beyond your lifetime. There were only a few who the Romans bestowed these upon later emperors claimed these for themselves, but it was people like Caesar, like Augustus, like Trajan, like Cincinnatus. I probably pronounced that wrong, but I like the city. These were the people. And those are the titles, those are the categories, that is the way that Peter talks about Jesus. But the people to first hear these would not have necessarily thought in those categories. Nonetheless, it would have been impactful for them. And I want to take a moment to think about what such an august thing would have meant for Jesus and what they would have meant for the other hearers of this voice, the disciples, Peter, James, and John. First of all, for Jesus. To hear, "This is my son, my chosen, listen to him," is a ratification of who he is and what he is doing. And I have to say that every son would love to hear this from their father. Who you are is good, and what you are doing is good, and I should not be so gender specific. Every person would love to hear this from their parent, even more so from the divine parent. I think most of us want to do the right thing. And most of us, too, want to be confirmed that what we're doing is the right thing, because as committed as we might be to doing the right thing, we all have questions now and again. Is this the right thing or not? And there is a promise inherent in the statement of Gloria, that though Jesus knew he was going to his crucifixion, his purpose, his mission would outlast that. And I think that must have been such a strong encouragement to Jesus, who was talking to Elijah and Moses about his departure, to know that his departure was not the end of the story, but it would continue on. Now, to be clear, the Christian story of Jesus is much more than just someone who leaves a legacy and a good memory, but it's also that. What an encouragement it must have been for Jesus, and what a commissioning it must have been for Peter, James, and John to remember and to share. What a shift has occurred, because in the gospel reading, they don't tell anybody what has happened. And in Peter, he puts it in writing for it to be remembered for all time. Sometimes it is good to hear that what you have thrown everything in for isn't going to fail. Peter, James, and John gave up everything. And what God knew, and Jesus knew, and evidently Moses and Elijah knew, but Peter, James, and John did not know, is that bad times were coming. And they might question whether they had put all of their eggs in the right basket. But maybe in those moments, they could remember the voice from heaven that said, "Listen to him." One would think that if you hear God speak to you directly, which is not something I don't think that occurs very often. I'm not going to ask you if that's happened because, I might love that, or else I might also say that I have a lovely psychologist for you to talk to about that. But I have never heard God's voice speak from heaven. I would like to think that if I did, it would be a profound, unshakable moment. And maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. We remembered St. James not too long ago, the first apostle to be martyred. I have to think he held on to this. John, who tradition says was thrown in a cauldron of boiling oil and survived it, Don't fact check the church. Just let it go. Let it be a story. I think he had to hold on to it. I think this was a moment in which they were reminded that it was their mission to tell the story. Inherent in the imperial proclamation of Gloria was that you, as a good Roman, would go and tell the story of the hero. And you would commemorate him publicly in events. And so what do we do when we come together as a church? We tell the story and we commemorate it in the Eucharist. And that gets us to the third audience, us, who hear this voice, maybe not audibly, maybe hopefully not audibly, but in the text that reminds us that we have work to do, but work that will bear fruit in this life and in the life to come. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.